TV Network on Zingo TV Channel 250. Chris Faria with me today, Leafs guy, hockey guy. He's got a lot of opinions. Chris, we'll get to you in just a second. Before we do that, please remember to download both the BarnBurner and Zingo TV apps in the respective app store on iOS and Android devices. Why download? Make sure you rate and leave a comment. Remember, both apps are absolutely free, so if you don't have them, not sure what you're doing, they are free. Zingo TV is also available on Google, Chromecast, Amazon Fire, and Fire TV sticks. Roku and Roku sticks are also on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Chris Faria, how are you? Thank you for joining me.
Hey, Logan, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on today. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, I've been watching some of this hockey. We know that the Stars are in the finals. We know that the Lightning should be in the finals. They are the better team. The Islanders are hanging around there. But let's look a little ahead. Conn Smythe. It's a bit of a weird year, weird playoffs. Not sure how you feel about putting an asterisk next to everything. We'll leave that conversation maybe for a little later. But give me your favorites for the Conn Smythe right now. I mean, people are talking Hudobin, which is a bit shocking. People are talking about some other guys. Who do you have? Top 2 or 3 favorites in there?
Yeah, you brought up Hudobin. Let's start with him because I think he's actually a pretty interesting case. He's kind of had a coming out party these playoffs, obviously, carrying Dallas, even though he's quote unquote their backup. But I was actually looking at goalies over the past 3 years. I wrote about Anderson and how he just fits into the whole scheme. And I found Hudobin's been one of the best goalkeepers or goaltenders over the last 3 seasons in the whole NHL, which is, I don't know, might be a shock to some, but what he's done in these playoffs, maybe it shouldn't come as a surprise.
It's a shock to me. You know, Hudobin's kind of just been this guy who's a backup. He kind of gets the team on a back-to-back. You know, you've seen him with the Bruins before and the Hurricanes. It is shocking. It is a scenario where we haven't seen this to this extent in a long time, where a backup goaltender comes in and they go on a run. Now, Cam Ward with the Hurricanes, way back 2006, there's kind of an example, but, you know, him and Martin Gerber that year split time. It was not like this because Ben Bishop's the starter, right? So did you ever have this belief in Hudobin? Like when you saw him as the starter, did you ever think, he can carry the Stars? No one did, right?
Well, to be honest, I'm not I don't watch a ton of Stars hockey, but once I dug into those numbers and I did a little research, did you know he had a .919 save percentage in his career? That's better than Anderson, better than Carey Price. So, it's mind-blowing stuff that, a guy who's probably averaging 30 starts a year can pull this off, playing night in, night out for the Stars. But yeah, he's been a journeyman goalie in his whole career, so maybe that's why we don't hear about him so much. But yeah, he's just been unbelievable.
Yeah, good for him, and credit to Rick Bowness too. He's really got that team going. When it comes to coaches that deserve, he's an intern coach, but when it comes to coaches who might deserve a full-time role, he's definitely someone. Absolutely Rick Bowness in Dallas. Now let's go to those Islanders. Clearly they're outmatched, right? Tampa Bay's a better team. The Islanders are somehow finding a way to push this to a game 6. Let's take a step back, though, of the Islanders. This is a team without John Tavares. Barry Trotz comes in, and they look fantastic. And now Barzal is a star. As someone who watches a lot of Maple Leafs hockey, Chris, does that bother you at all?
No, you know what? I think most people in Toronto aren't, we don't really care what the Islanders are up to. It's more like the other way around, where because Tavares came to the Leafs, their fan base seems to be a little bit obsessed with, rubbing in their success over the Leafs. But, all credit to them. I mean, they're a fantastic playoff team. They get great buy-in from their entire roster. I think Barzal's a superstar for sure, but in no way does he put himself or his offensive totals above, the betterment of the team, which I think is really important for playing that tight defensive hockey. And I think Barry Trotz is just a fantastic coach. Obviously he won the cup just a couple years ago with the Caps. He's a great track record, and he's brought the Islanders to that next level as well.
Now, we can give the Islanders praise, but it would surprise you still if they take down the Lightning, right?
Oh, absolutely. the Lightning are playing. We saw last night they played without Point. He's injured, and Stamkos has been out the entire playoffs. And the Lightning were still the much better team. So like, it's the playoffs and anything can happen. That's part of the fun. But I still do expect the Lightning to go through.
Who was your pick at the beginning of the playoffs to win the Stanley Cup?
I think I had Colorado.
Okay.
Actually, yeah. I think my final was Tampa versus Colorado. And my second choice was Tampa versus Vegas. So obviously that's not happening either.
So Dallas really put a damper into your picks. They take down Colorado and then they take down Vegas. So you must be thinking, wow, this Dallas team, there's something about them. And I know we had this conversation a little bit on Twitter about the Stars. Now, what is it about this Stars team that's really shocked you the most? When in particular, you watched them play Vegas in that game 5. What really stuck out to you about the Stars team? Because they're in the finals now. We got to start really getting real about Dallas here.
It's a great story, like maybe there's not been enough of a story or a narrative around the run of this Dallas Stars team, but they've been like a Cinderella story almost, like in the regular season, I think they had 82 points, which is 1 point more than the Maple Leafs, who were apparently, like
they missed the
a
playoffs.
tire fire. Yeah, like everyone's talking down the Leafs, but now these Stars are in the finals on an 82-point season, which is just, unbelievable. No one expected it. And I was looking into the numbers for the Stars as well. I'm sure you've heard this. They're the first team since 1968, the St. Louis Blues, to advance to a final with a negative goal differential in the playoffs.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And they've done this on the back of an 8-1 record in 1-goal games, including 3 overtime wins. So, in my eyes, there's 2 ways to look at it. Either it's been a bit of puck luck, which I think, is part of it, or maybe there really is something in this Dallas Stars team where they're able to dig deep and score those, timely goals. Probably a mix of both, but it's made for a great story.
4 wins to go for the Dallas Stars, and they'll win the franchise's second Stanley Cup, the first since 1999, and of course, the Brett Hull goal in Game 6 against the Sabres. The last time the Dallas Stars won the Stanley Cup. They lost in the 2000 finals to those great New Jersey Devils, who had great teams back then. But that's the wrap on the Stars. Now, we mentioned the Leafs a couple times because, of course, we did. I knew that even when we're not talking about the Leafs, we'll find a way to mention them once or twice. And we did, amazingly enough. So the big 3 here. Let's go back with the Leafs here because there's a lot to talk about, especially with this offseason coming up. I think Dubas is on a hot seat. It's a lot hotter than even he may realize. And you got a big 3 here. Tavares, Matthews, Marner. If you're Kyle Dubas, do you trade one of them? And if so, who are you looking for the most to get as much value as you can? If you know what I mean. You don't want to subtract Matthews off the roster, even though you get a lot, but maybe it's Marner, right? So out of the big 3, who are you going for?
Can I cop out and say no one?
Yeah, that's an answer. Yeah.
So let's go. Let's go one by one, right?
Okay.
So Tavares, he has a full no move clause, and he was obviously just made captain. So I don't think that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to be insane to trade Austin Matthews, who's obviously a top 5 center in the league already. And then Marner would be the most feasible one to move, but you're probably not really getting a worthwhile return at this point, especially with his huge cap hit. And there's almost no teams in the league that can afford that right now with a flat cap and all the COVID going on. So I think instead of trying to blow things up, the Leafs, they're probably better off just plugging away and making little incremental changes this offseason. And hopefully a couple small upgrades end up with some better results.
Okay, and I hate picking on guys, but like Nylander, for example, would he be a guy that you think, okay, the Leafs should be open to dealing him?
If you've seen my tweets, you probably know I'm a huge Nylander fan. So
okay,
personally, I wouldn't move him. He might be on the best value cap hit of the 4 Leafs forwards, in my opinion, at $7 million. I've seen some rumors that the Leafs were, at least listening to offers on Nylander, but none of them were really substantial. So I feel like he's more valuable to the Leafs than the potential return they would get.
But if it's for, let's say, a defenseman, let's say Carolina comes calling and says, hey, Pesci or someone like this, right? Slavin for Nylander, would you listen to that and say, okay, let's work under that baseline?
Yeah, I think if you're getting names like that, you're definitely listening. You're definitely
Right.
entertaining those offers. Those are some great defensemen. I think the point is that they haven't gotten offers that good.
Right. Right. So for the listeners and the viewers here on the BarnBurner TV network, I'm sure a lot of them are saying, Nylander, come on, how can you like him? Convince them. Make your case for why you really like William Nylander as a Toronto Maple Leaf going forward.
Well, I think everyone saw it this year. Like his production was undeniable, right? I believe he had 31 goals, like mid 60 points, almost point per game or close to it. I think everyone can see his potential probably as a point per game player. He drives play unbelievably well, especially offensively. I do think he gets a bad rap a bit, especially defensively, just because he's one of those players that makes things look effortless.
Right.
But you see a lot of highlight goals. Honestly, if you go back and watch some of his highlights, they stem off these great defensive plays. Just a quick stick lift, steals the puck, and goes in and scores. Like he's a great young player, and like I said, maybe the best value forward on the Leafs.
I think that's really important. That contract that actually looks really good now. And Dubas comes a lot of heat, with the contracts he's given out, and we'll find a way to keep all these guys. And he did. But here we are, in the Toronto Maple Leafs missed the playoffs for the first time in this Matthews, Marner, Nylander era. And yes, they did miss the playoffs. We have to understand that. They were in that qualifying round, but it doesn't count as a playoff appearance. They did not defeat the Columbus Blue Jackets. Let's go to the goaltending for the second here, because Anderson, he's got 1 year left on that deal. It's a good deal, right? And you would expect him to demand big money. And if I'm Frederick Anderson, I'm saying, hey, I'm going UFA. I can get a lot of big money somewhere. I know that's difficult to do. A lot of teams aren't handing over big bucks to goaltenders, even though we just saw it with Bobrovsky in Florida. But Anderson would demand a lot of money. And how do the Leafs manage that in a way? Because Anderson, no matter what you think of Anderson, and I've seen some of your tweets, I don't know if you're a huge Anderson fan, but how should the Leafs manage this situation with a year left?
Yeah, so there's been some rumors just the past few weeks that they've been shopping him actually. It sounds like they do want, a substantial return. They don't just want to give Anderson away because he still is a starting goalie.
Yeah.
He still can give you 55, 60 games of probably at least league average goaltending.
Yeah.
He definitely had a bad year though. I think that's the thing that has kind of gone under the radar, or at least with the media. People talk about the Leafs' weak defense, which it's debatable. We can talk about that if you want. I have some takes on that, but
Okay.
I think it was really the goaltending that let them down, at least in the regular season. So that's probably why the Leafs are looking to maybe upgrade, or maybe just go a bit of a cheaper tandem route, because there are some options out there in UFA or through trade. I wouldn't be totally upset if they hung on to Anderson. Like I said, he's a solid goalie. He has 1 more year left at a reasonable cap hit, but the Leafs do have options.
I am a Jack Campbell fan. I do have to say, I really like him. If the Leafs do go in the direction, like you say, the tandem, a cheap tandem, absolutely, I'd be okay with that. And Jack Campbell, for me, absolutely should be part of that. Would you feel comfortable, though, if the Leafs said, you know what, Jack Campbell's the starting goaltender?
No, not as a starter. I think the most he's ever played is about 30, 35 games. So I think he's an excellent tandem goalie. I would be 100% comfortable giving him 30, maybe even 40 games. I think he's that good. If you can get someone like Hudobin, he is a UFA. I know Dallas does want to re-sign him, but we'll see what happens. Get someone like Hudobin, or if you can even trade for a Darcy Kemper in Arizona, who's looking to shed some cap. I think Kemper Campbell tandem would be honestly one of the best in the league.
It would be a good tandem. It really would be. And, at the end of the day, you look at a guy like Hudobin, who's now maybe about to win Conn Smythe. It's not that bad of a decision to make if you want to go tandem, because who knows what goaltender can get hot at the right time. That's what's happened in Dallas. Hudobin's got hot. He got handed the reign, and now he's playing well. And it's a cheap goaltender, right? I don't know how much money he's going to demand. I think it would be crazy for him to start asking for a lot of money. Small sample size, but like you say, his numbers are really good. He might actually have a case for something. Defensively, though, the Leafs, a lot of, no one likes the Leafs defense. Maybe you do, but that's kind of the narrative around Leafs land. The defense is rough. It's not good. For me, I feel like I've been hearing that for almost 2 decades now with the Leafs. I mean, in 2004, you had a veteran blue line. Brian Leetch was part of it. McCabe was relatively young. Caberlet was relatively young, but it was a decent blue line. Ever since that lockout, the Leafs blue line has really not been strong. We can blame coaching. We know the coaches that have come through, but here we are again. Now, convince me to why the Leafs maybe don't need to go in the direction of the offseason where defense is the number one priority. In other words, you don't have to use all your trade assets, all your cap space on a blue line, right?
Well, I think we saw a pretty substantial transformation last season under Sheldon Keefe. They became the best offensive team in the league under him. But what a lot of people don't know is that their defense actually improved substantially as well. Mm-hmm. They went from 22nd in expected goals against to 10th. So 22nd under Babcock to 10th under Keefe, which, a lot of people don't really talk about, don't really know. But we did see some substantial defensive improvements there. I think going back into the goaltending, a lot of their problems last year did come down to Anderson and Hutchinson just really not kind of holding up on their end.
Right.
I think if Anderson played to his career average, the Leafs would have been, they would have added definitely a few points to the standings, would have been in a better position going into the playoffs. Who knows what happens in the qualifiers? Maybe they get a better matchup. Maybe they win around, and the whole narrative changes, right, about the Leafs team, the roster makeup. So, it's one of those things where just a Game 5 loss kind of just adds to that narrative of a Leafs defense that needs a huge shakeup.
Is Morgan Rielly a number one defenseman in the NHL?
The way I like to define number one defenseman is there's 31 teams, so there's 31 number one defensemen. If you think of it that way, I think absolutely he's a top 31 defenseman in the NHL. And I also think Jake Muzzin is a top 31 defenseman. So by my standards anyways, the Leafs have 2 number one defensemen, which is, pretty good. I think their right side is definitely a weakness. When your top right-handed D are like Justin Hall and Tyson Barrie, you're pretty rough there. So that's definitely a position that they should look to upgrade.
But let me ask you this about Rielly, though. Would you give him a substantial contract that would pay him like a quote-unquote number one defenseman?
It's hard to say with the COVID and the flat salary cap, like how exactly contracts are going to progress over the next few years, right? I think Rielly has 2 more years, if I'm correct, on his current contract, around $5 million. If the cap stays flat, I think he still deserves, a bit of a raise. He might be looking at 7-8 million. It really depends how the Leafs prospects progress right now, right? Because they have Rasmus Sandin, who I believe is going to be at least a top 4 defenseman, possibly even top pair looking at his comparables. So honestly, they have Jake Muzzin signed for 3 more years, and if Rasmus Sandin progresses as we expect, as we hope, maybe Rielly does walk as a free agent.
So you're a believer in Sandin, big time, clearly. And what about Liljegren? Have you kind of written that off for now?
No, he's still a young defenseman, right? He's 21 years old. A lot of these guys don't figure things out until they're 23, 24, 25. Even Morgan Rielly, right? He only broke out probably
right.
2-3 years ago as a 24, 25-year-old. So give the kid some time, right? Like, I know we're in Toronto. The media is harsh on these defensemen, and they want, instant progress, instant results. But he's 21. He hasn't really had a full NHL season yet. I think he played a handful of games this year. Hopefully he gets, 10, 20 games in this season, shows a little bit of progress, and then maybe 2022 he becomes a third pairing full-time fixture.
So I think you're pretty optimistic about the Leafs blue line. I think a lot more optimistic than a lot of people. A lot of people just say, we hate the blue line, and that's why we're losing. I don't think we should take it that far, but there are problems. I mean, down the stretch, there are problems, right? You saw game 4, the big comeback game. That error by Morgan Riley in his own zone, Columbus makes it 3-0. You know, things like that. I think that's what stands out to people, even though you're being smart about it. You're looking at the big picture. You're looking at, things that we should kind of take a step back and say, okay, this is what's really happening, right? So I think you're on the right track there. And I agree. I'm just not sure if Morgan Riley is, I think he's a great number 2, if you know what I mean, right? But would Morgan Riley make Team Canada at the Olympics? I think he would, right?
As a top 6, he's probably close, right? I think he's at least, in that conversation for number 6, 7 defenseman for Canada. And I mean, if you got a starting player for Team Canada on your blue line, like, you can't really complain, right?
Exactly. And, the Leafs had Brian McCabe actually at the 2006 Olympics make it then. So there you go. I think that would be the last Leaf to do it, actually. So, there's something at least. Okay. Sheldon Keefe, your impressions. It was a relatively small sample size. He comes in for Mike Babcock. You already kind of mentioned that, how defensively and the goals expected, they went up by 12 spots in the National Hockey League under Keefe, which is very good. So I'm assuming you like Keefe under that premise, right? A small sample size, but your impressions.
Yeah, like you said, small sample size aside, I think we saw some really promising things from Keefe and the Leafs under him. So let me take you back to November. End of November, Babcock's fired. The Leafs are 9-10-4 at that point, 25th in the league in points percentage under Babcock, right? So they've got to climb back just to get into a playoff spot at that point. Keefe comes in, and just in that first game against Arizona, I don't know if you remember, Tyson Barrie scores his first goal. The team goes nuts, right? They all look so happy for him. They look totally rejuvenated, and it's almost like just the whole weight was lifted off their shoulders once Keefe came in. So under Keefe, the Leafs go 27-15-5. That's the 8th best points percentage in the league under that span. And they obviously claw back in the playoff spot. Now, the pandemic kind of ruins their streak. They're kind of looking like they're about to clinch that, 6th, 7th seed. But they end up in the qualifiers, and we all know the story from there. But yeah, I really do expect the Leafs to have a much better season next year. Just, that added familiarity under Keefe. I think just more runway, 60, 70 games to kind of get things rolling. I think we're going to see much better results over that longer sample size. I think Keefe is a great players coach. I think the guys really like him. I think he's able to get the most out of his players. We saw guys like Matthews and Nylander really have breakout seasons under him. And I think it's not a coincidence. I think they like him. I think they like playing for him. Like I said, I think I expect a lot better out of the Leafs this season.
Okay, so for you, Keefe is the guy. You wouldn't have any doubts. Like for example, if the Leafs disappoint this upcoming season, you wouldn't jump the gun and say, get rid of Keefe, right?
No. I've talked to some fans who do think that. They think that Dubas and Keefe are already on the hot seat. I think what it comes down to is look at the chain of command, right? Shanahan is the one who hired Dubas, and he really likes Dubas. And Dubas is the one who hired Keefe. He really likes Keefe. I think because of those relationships, they do have a little bit more leash than the public might think. I think regardless of the results, I think Keefe is getting at least 2 more seasons. Okay. Especially I think the pandemic kind of throws things all askew a bit with, these playoffs were weird. Next season's going to start in January, most likely. It's going to be a shortened season. That's going to be a little bit weird. It might not be till, the fall of 2021 where the NHL season really gets back on track. So under those circumstances, I do think Keefe is getting at least 2 more seasons, regardless of what happens.
And you know what? We do know that Keefe is Dubas's guy, right? So as long as Dubas is here, Keefe is most likely here as well. I don't think he's going to pull the plug on Keefe at all during his tenure in Toronto. That is the guy that he's wanted since the beginning. Wayne Simmons, okay? Let's talk about him a little bit. I understand that On Twitter, you've said, let's not go crazy about bringing Wayne Simmons to Toronto. I just got to say, I've been a big Wayne Simmons fan. I watched him in Owen Sound a little bit when he was part of the attack in junior, someone I've always liked. But in this point of time, I'm not sure what he would add to this Leafs team. Make the case for people or against people that say, yes, exactly the kind of player that we need.
So I think a lot of it is just kind of remembering the player that Wayne Simmons was, 4 or 5 years ago. He absolutely was one of the best premier power forwards in the NHL, right? He was a perennial 30-goal, 50, 60-point player. A big body, he can bang on the boards, great skater, great power play presence in front of the net, all that. Fantastic player. Thing is, he's had a bunch of injuries. He's 32 years old now. He's coming off a couple, honestly, really bad seasons. I wrote about this last week. I compared Simmons to Kyle Clifford. People think about Clifford as this, goon enforcer guy. If you look at the scoring rates, Clifford is actually a much better, more productive forward, at least at 5-on-5 compared to Simmons. So Simmons, he might still be useful on the power play in front of the net, but I think if you look at the Leafs' options, especially for their first unit, they have obviously way better weapons. So he's not going to get into that first unit. On a fourth line, playing 8-10 minutes a night, I think the Leafs just have better options. Like I said, Clifford is one, and there's going to be cheaper guys in UFA, I think, that can do the same job.
Absolutely.
He's coming off a $5 million contract, right? And people think he's going to take some kind of hometown discount just to come back to Toronto. I don't really see the fit. I think he's going to take the most money he can in his last few years as an NHLer, right? He needs to cash in while he can. So,
yeah, from face value, I don't blame people for saying, "Oh, it'd be a great signing," because he just sounds like the kind of player the Leafs need, right? Of course, that big body, power forward, guys who had success, you can put the puck in the net. But when you really look at it, it just doesn't make that much sense. And I'm not sure how much he can really add. And that'd be very dangerous to give him a contract at all. Unless if you're going to bring in Wayne Simmons, make it 1 year minimum kind of deal. Okay, let's not get crazy here. That's what I would think they would do. I think that Dubas, he would be a little smarter than that and not jump the gun on Wayne Simmons. So what are your expectations for the Leafs next year? I know that you believe that the offseason, if you were Kyle Dubas, you would kind of make minor changes, tweak it here, tweak it there, don't do anything crazy. Do you still expect this Leafs team to be a team where, when we look at the preseason predictions, there might be a couple people choosing the Leafs to win the cup, like we've seen in the last few years? Do you think you would still have those expectations?
I think almost regardless of what they do, they're still in that, top 8 to top 10 category of teams that if they're in the playoffs, they have a fair chance of winning the cup, right? Like, I think if anything, these playoffs have shown us that any team in the playoffs can go all the way. The Dallas Stars are the perfect example. Islanders, another great example. They're almost there. So the Leafs are going to be, in my opinion, in that conversation, almost regardless of what they do, just because they have so much talent up front. And like I said, under Keefe, I think just that extra familiarity, one more season under him, everything is going to click just a little bit better. Hopefully they make a couple changes on the blue line. Maybe the bottom 6 gets beefed up a little bit. Maybe Wayne Simmons comes in, league minimum, pots 20 goals, surprises everyone, and I have to shut up, but we'll see what happens.
I'll be with you shutting up if that happens. I'll tell you that. Chris Faria, thank you very much. I hope we can do this soon. As the off season really gets going, I understand it's going to be a little weird, short and off season, but eventually it will get going. Let people know how they can find you, read you, follow you.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Chris Faria TO. I'm also writing for the Hockey Writers. So if you just go to the Hockey Writers, type in my name, Chris Faria, you'll find all my work.
Chris Faria, thank you very much. Hope to do this soon. Stay safe, be well, and enjoy the rest of the playoffs.
Thanks, Logan. Thanks for having me.
So there he is. The Leaf talk, of course, is a big deal in this city. Even when the Leafs are out, we always find a way to bring the Leafs into any conversation. It's funny with the Leafs because, even when disappointment happens, there's just this feeling of panic and change everything up. And, I was thinking about this the other day. You see how the Raptors get eliminated? And the whole conversation is all the Raptor fans, they say, thank you for a great year. It was so fantastic. And then meanwhile, Leaf fans, when they lose, they go, trade everyone. We're very upset. Isn't the contrast amazing between the two teams there? So there's Chris Faria, great stuff. We'll have him on soon again to talk a little off season. He's got great opinions. And if you're on Twitter and you like reading, some good hockey takes, Chris is definitely someone to follow. He is fantastic, and happy that he can join us today. Now let's go on to week 2 here. NFL week 1 was just a wild week. And I'm not just saying that because there were no fans a lot of the times. It's a COVID year. We were not really sure if we would even see football, but we did. And it was one of those weeks that had surprises. I took Washington to beat the Eagles last week, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but they did win the game. And the Eagles collapsed. Week 1 was one of these weeks where I'm looking at the games here, and I'm looking at who I picked, and I'm going, I was right here, but I was very wrong there. I was very wrong about the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, it was just a nightmarish kind of game because the injuries that the Cowboys run into are just incredible. I mean, they're so unfortunate. Blake Jarwin, who finally here in 2020 was supposed to get that tight end role, get all the time, tight end 1, and now he's out for the year, a torn ACL. And it's just one of these scenarios with the Cowboys that, with Van Der Esch as well, that whole linebacker core, they can't stay healthy. The linebackers, Sean Lee, Van Der Esch, these guys, they're not on the field. The Lee is now out for about 6 weeks. Van Der Esch will be out 6 to 8 weeks. The Cowboys are banged up. And the most disappointing part about the Sunday night game against the Rams was that Cowboys team, it looked a lot like last year's Cowboys team under Jason Garrett. It just looked like them. I felt like I was watching the same team. That was really disappointing. We thought McCarthy would come in and, we're going to change life in Dallas here. It's going to look really different. Nothing looked different. And that's the most disappointing part. I'm not going to get into what happened with McCarthy's play calls. He should have gone for a field goal to tie the game. It was 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That should have happened. I wasn't mad at the play call at that time, but after I think about it, the Cowboys got the ball 2 times after that. They had the opportunity to take the lead, tie the game, whatever it may be. You probably should have taken your 3 points. In that standpoint, the offensive pass interference call was brutal. I didn't like it. That cost the Cowboys the game. But you know what? It's week 1, and I wasn't expecting the Cowboys necessarily to get off to this wild start where they're 4-0 or something. I thought maybe there might be an adjustment period under McCarthy. That's what it appears. Let's get to my week 2 picks now. Of course, I'll go in order here for all the games. The Thursday night game, the Bengals at the Browns tomorrow. The Bengals, that I feel so bad for Joe Burrow. I really do. I took them to win that game against the Chargers. I was wrong. They probably should have won the game. Again, there were some weird things that happened at the end that really messed up their chances. But Burrow, he showed that on that drive, in the 2-minute drill, to drive the Bengals down the field. Absolutely. He did his job. He played his part very well. Joe Burrow is going to be a very good quarterback in this league, if not incredible. And I think there's a lot of optimism. I did say, though, that regardless of what happens with the Bengals in terms of wins and losses, then they're going to be a pain for a lot of teams. No matter if it's a incredibly strong team, no matter if it's a team that they could. They play the Browns this week. I'm going to take the Browns to bounce back here. The Browns look brutal in Baltimore in week 1. And the Browns are one of these teams that if they don't win this game, then there's going to be some major backlash coming to the Browns here. Okay, week 1, you're in Baltimore. Okay, fine. It's just one game. Baltimore's a great team. If you can't win, and I know it's going to be a shortened week here. They're playing tomorrow night. If you can't win at home against the Bengals here, I don't even know what to say. Stefanski, who came in, he's the new head coach. The Browns, by the way, they've gone through so many head coaches over the last 20 years. It's not even funny. It's not funny. I was looking at it, and a lot of people making jokes about it. It's actually not funny how many coaches they've gone through. It's gross. They got to bounce back in week 2 here. Give me the Browns at home. Baker has really got to step up. And I really like Joe Burrow here. I think we're looking at a close game. I think we're looking at a game where it comes down to a field goal, but I like the Browns. The Giants at the Bears. Now, the Giants look pretty good against the Steelers. There's some unfortunate events happening, but Daniel Jones played really well. And those unfortunate events came at the end of a lot of drives. Daniel Jones, he gets the offense rolling. It looks pretty good. I think that they'll use Barkley a lot here, but I'm going to take the Bears at home here just based on defense. This has the opportunity to be a really sloppy game, I think. The Bears had a miracle comeback win against the Lions, and the Bears are a team that can take that comeback, take the momentum, and then win week 2 against a subpar Giants team. They're not a great team. The Bears, they see this as an opportunity now. Oh, we can go 2-0. I think they're going to take that opportunity. I think they're going to play their hearts out. Give me the Bears to go 2-0 at home against the Giants. But I got to say, I was impressed with the Giants, and in particular, Daniel Jones. And the Giants' defense was terrible last year. They weren't that bad in week 1 against the Steelers. So I kind of like the Giants here. So far, I don't think they're going to beat the Bears. I think this is going to be another close one. It's going to be sloppy. It might be really low scoring. This might be a bit of I don't want to call it a snooze fest, but if you don't like high scoring games, I don't know if this is going to be the game for you. Maybe I'll be wrong, and then I'll look like a fool when I talk to you next Wednesday. But I'll take the Bears at home here to go 2-0 against the New York Football Giants. Now, the Rams at the Eagles. The Rams were out there against the Cowboys on Sunday night running their offense like it's 2018. They looked really good, up-tempo. Sean McVay looked like he was rolling. The difference maker, though, came on the defensive end because Aaron Donald, game-changing. He won them the game. He just did. And that's how good Aaron Donald is. The Eagles, on the other hand, I know that there's a lot of people in Philadelphia upset right now. This is a team that is, they're first of all, they're banged up, and they always seem to be banged up, the Eagles. They just have so many injury problems. But for them to blow a 17-0 lead in Washington, that has got to be one of the biggest week 1 disappointments in the franchise's history. And I'm not kidding. There's an expectation around Philadelphia that this team is going to be really good. They should win the division. Carson Wentz should play like the MVP caliber player that he once was. And injuries have held him back, I understand. But I'm going to take the Rams here on the road. And I think that's not a shot against Philly. I think that's more about the Rams and how impressed I was with the Rams. And I understand that Dallas had its flaws on Sunday night, and it wasn't all because of the Rams. But I think Aaron Donald, he's going to get to the quarterback again. He's going to get pressure under Carson Wentz. Dak Prescott, he got pressure under him. Carson Wentz, that's comparable to Dak Prescott. I think the same thing's going to happen. I'm going to take the Rams, and I know the game's in Philadelphia. Give me the Rams on the road for them to go 2-0. Next, Atlanta at Dallas. I talked about the Cowboys just a little bit a few minutes ago. You can probably tell that I think the Cowboys are going to bounce back. I think that the Cowboys at home, they just play better in general, and Amari Cooper in particular on the road, he does a disappearing act, and that's nothing against Amari Cooper. He's actually he's okay on the road. I think I'm being a little harsh, but I think it's more about how well he plays in Jerry World. And I think that Dak, he's going to have a better game. He's going to throw the ball better, and he's going to hook up with Cooper for a couple touchdowns. I think that's what's going to happen here. Atlanta is really on the verge here of finding themselves in a whole clean house mode for their coaching staff. Dan Quinn is under a lot of heat in Atlanta, and they lose week 1 against Seattle at home. Seattle's a good team, but Atlanta right now at this point, they just can't get it going. I'm a big Matt Ryan fan. I'm a big Julio Jones fan. I think Dallas is going to bounce back. I still have Dallas, despite their week 1 loss. I think Dallas is going to win the NFC East. And I think that week 2, Atlanta at home, that's the kind of game that the Cowboys win. I'll take Dallas there to go 1-1 and bounce back from that Sunday night game. Carolina at Tampa. So Tampa, of course, they're in New Orleans last week. The game does incredible on Fox from a rating standpoint. It was an absolute hit on Fox. You had about 25, 27 million people watching. And the Bucs were disappointing. Brady was disappointing. He was mad. And that was a lot of what we saw from Brady in New England last year. Him uncharacteristically getting upset, not just at himself, but his teammates and what's happening around him. We saw that in week 1 with Brady in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers uniform. That's really concerning. But again, I'm not going to go into panic mode here. I have the Bucs going really far this year. I'm going to stick with that. I think they're going to bounce back. I think they're going to win at home here. There were some positives that you can take from the Bucs performance. There were. It wasn't all bad. Okay. I mean, the first drive that they put together was incredible, by the way. I mean, they were clicking. It was looking like midseason form for Tampa Bay. You know, New Orleans is a really good team. They're going to get Carolina this week. And Carolina, who I think is a little better than a lot of people think, but defensively, they really struggle. I think the Bucs and Brady, they're going to expose that. And I'll take the Bucs at home to bounce back. We'll go to the Niners at the Jets, MetLife Stadium. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. The Jets look brutal in Buffalo on Sunday. It was at a point, I think they punted the ball 4 times in the first quarter. It was so bad for the Jets. I know they kind of turned it around near the end, but the Jets right now, they're a complete mess. It's unfortunate. I think that Adam Gase, he's got to take a lot of heat here. And I don't know how long he's going to last. I know they believe in him in New York. I know that they want to defend the guy, support the guy. But head coach Adam Gase, I think he's really on life support here when it comes to being the head coach of the New York Jets. Give me the Niners. And the Niners lost in week 1. Good, close game against the Cardinals. They lose at home. Bit of a shocker. But the Niners absolutely are going to bounce back. They're going to do it on the road in New Jersey, East Rutherford, New Jersey, against the Jets. The Broncos at the Steelers. The Broncos really should have lost that Monday night game a lot earlier than they did. The kicking woes for the Titans it was incredible, actually. You know, it actually became the attraction of the game to see if Steven Gostkowski can make a kick. That's what the game became. The Broncos were actually really disappointing to me Monday night. I wasn't impressed at all. And the Steelers, on the other hand, they had their problems against the Giants at some points, but the Steelers' front 7 is so good. It is just game-changing, really. And, you know, Big Ben, I think, you know, he'll get it going soon. I really believe in Big Ben here. I think that in week 1, he hasn't played in a long time. There was no preseason either. So let's not come under Big Ben here and say, hey, he's not that great anymore. No. He'll get it going. He'll get it rolling soon. I like the Steelers at home for their home opener against the Broncos to go 2-0. Jacksonville at the Titans. Jacksonville won week 1. You know, that was another shocker. Gardner Minshew is a quarterback that won them the game against Indianapolis. A lot of people are disappointed in Indianapolis, but Jacksonville did win week 1. Tennessee, just talked about them Monday night. They win as well. I like Tennessee here. I think that Jacksonville on the road, you know, the magic might have to end here. It might pick up at some point again, but the Titans are a really good team. You know, Clowney makes a difference. Derrick Henry won the ball really well in this one. Tannehill is pretty good. Now the Titans need a kicker, though, because what I saw on Monday night just can't happen. Steven Gostkowski, he missed 3 extra points, all within pretty decent range that you should make. 3 field goals, all within range that you should make, and an extra point as well. And it actually came to the point, I can't remember the last time I saw something like this, where the Titans were down by just 2 points. All they needed was a field goal to win the game. And on their final drive, instead of trying to get into field goal territory, they were going for a touchdown. You know, I can't remember ever seeing that. And if I have, it's been a while. You know, that's how bad the kicking woes got for the Titans. They got to figure that out because if they do, they're going to be a really good team, actually. I think Titans aren't getting enough credit here. They add Clowney, and to me, they're the new favorites in the AFC South. I like them in week 2 against Jacksonville. The Lions at the Packers. The Lions, just a disappointing collapse. You know, the Lions usually start really good. I thought that they would win week 1 at home against the Bears. They blow the lead. And the Packers looked really good in Minnesota. Green Bay is going to be a really good team. There's something about Aaron Rodgers right now, and in particular, his connection of Devontae Adams, that's dangerous. And that's really scary. I like the Packers here to go 2-0. I think the Packers might be one of these teams that go 7-1, 8-1. They might go undefeated for a little bit of time here. They look really good. They were clicking on both sides of the ball. So I like Green Bay in week 2. Buffalo at Miami. Buffalo looks real good. I know the Jets looked real bad. I liked Buffalo here. And in Miami, the story is, when will it be Tua time? When is it going to be Tua time? You know, Ryan Fitzpatrick, it's not going to go on forever here. I know they want to ease Tua into this and all that, but it's got to come soon. And honestly, I think it's coming sooner than a lot of people think. I think that this can happen at halftime, if anything. We'll see. But I like Buffalo on the road in Miami. The Vikings at the Colts. You know, I went back and forth on this one. I've been looking at this game for a couple days now thinking, well, who am I going to take? You would think that the Colts need to bounce back. You know, their division is too tight. It's way too tight to go 0-2. You just can't go 0-2 here. But the Vikings, they're another team that we expect to be a playoff team. I know Stephon Diggs isn't there anymore, but still, defensively, I think they should keep the Colts under control here. I'm going to take the Vikings in a really close game. This is one that can go back and forth. Not sure how many points will go on the board. It could be a bit of a shootout, but I like the Vikings here real close. If we go Washington football team at Arizona, this whole Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins connection, it looks like it's going to be magic. That's what the sense you get looking at week 1 against the Niners. I like them to beat the Washington football team here. The Washington football team, they're one of these teams right now that could be a little sneaky. They beat the Eagles, and they beat the Eagles in large part because their defensive line is so good, and their front seven is really good, and Chase Young has made a difference right from the get-go. This is a tough one. It's a tough one, and it really shouldn't be. And then I talk some sense into myself. Arizona. Okay, they're not going to lose to the Washington football team. I'd be shocked. Baltimore at Houston. Houston, this is really, really bad for Houston here. You know, I don't know if any team in the league has a tougher start to their schedule than the Houston Texans. You start on the road against KC. Now you get Baltimore. And yes, you get the Ravens at home. But that's a really, really tough way to start your season. I feel bad for the Texans here. I'm going to take Baltimore, though, because Baltimore looked like they were Super Bowl bound in week 1, even though it was the Browns. The Browns look brutal. Baltimore looks really good. So I like the Ravens at the Texans in that one. KC at the Chargers. Chargers are real lucky here. The Chargers are real lucky that they pulled out that win against Cincinnati, because really they shouldn't have won that game. The Bengals should have won it with a field goal at the end. The Chargers are really lucky because if they lose that game in Cincinnati, then they got to play the Chiefs next week, and they're 0-2. Real lucky stuff. This is a bad matchup for the Chargers. The Chiefs are going to win this game. I like them to go 2-0. They've had some extra time to get going. Of course, the Chiefs played on the Thursday night. Now they're going to play on the Sunday afternoon here. So some extra time for the Chiefs to get going and get everything under control. They'll go 2-0 in LA at new SoFi Stadium. Yes, will be the debut for the Chargers at that stadium. The Rams opened it up on Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys with a victory. But I don't think that win success will continue with the Chargers. Give me the Chiefs there. Sunday Night Football, the Patriots at the Seahawks. Great matchup. I think we all loved Cam Newton in his debut. It was one of those games that we were all intrigued about watching because, hey, someone other than number 12 is playing quarterback for the New England Patriots. And out of all people, it's Cam Newton, the 2015 MVP of the National Football League. He looked good. And I think that Josh McDaniels and Belichick as well, they got a lot under their sleeve here when it comes to how Cam Newton's going to fit in this offense. I think this game will be closer than a lot of people think. I know that the easy pick here is Seattle. That's where a lot of people are going to go to. They're going to say Seahawks. I'm taking the Seahawks as well. I'm really interested to see this game unfold, though, because, you know, Seattle's a team that you just assume, they're going to run the ball. Russell Wilson's going to make some big plays. He's going to keep plays alive. They're going to convert on third down a lot. New England's defense is really good. And I'm not sure if Seattle's success and what they did against Atlanta, who is not good defensively, can translate to a week 2 dominant victory over the New England Patriots. I just don't think that will happen. I'm going to take the Seahawks here. I think it'll be closer than a lot of people think. Monday Night Football. Okay, so we got another stadium opening here, and now it is that Raiders stadium in Vegas. This is like an all-black stadium. It looks really cool. If you haven't checked this stadium out, a lot of money was put into this stadium as well. You know, the black hole, and you know, back when they were in Oakland, the Raiders, they've kind of brought that back to this stadium. There's a real cool, slick look to this Vegas Raiders stadium. It's going to be cool to see on Monday Night Football. They play the Saints. Give me the Saints. You know, the Raiders win week 1. They win in Carolina. They look pretty good. Josh Jacobs is big time. He's a star in this league. And I even tweeted it. I said, if you got Josh Jacobs on your fantasy team, congratulations. That's a good pick. He looks really good so far. I like New Orleans though here. You know, New Orleans, clearly the better team. They're better than almost anyone in this league. You know, they play Tampa and look like, you know, records. They really look like they're out there and dominant. They force turnovers against Brady, which doesn't happen a lot. They really clicked offensively as well. They converted. They made things happen. A good game here. I'm intrigued to watch it as well. I don't think this is a blowout, but I like New Orleans, Monday Night Football, and those are my week 2 picks. Okay, my winners for the week: Cleveland, Chicago, Los Angeles Rams, Dallas, Tampa Bay, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, Green Bay, Buffalo, Minnesota, Arizona, Baltimore, Kansas City, Seattle, and New Orleans. A lot of news coming out of the NFL today. Michael Thomas. Now, this is something that you got to pay attention to. I just picked New Orleans to win the game, but then you'll remember Michael Thomas is going to be out for several weeks, and that is not good news for the New Orleans Saints. Of course, top 3 receiver, if not the best receiver in football. Okay, so Michael Thomas is definitely someone that it's going to hurt their offense. It's going to hurt how it clicks, how it rolls. That's not good news for the Saints at all. And I mentioned Sean Lee with the Cowboys. He's out 6 weeks now. Van Der Esch is out 6 to 8 weeks. Cowboys have injury woes. And you're in a position now, if you're Mike McCarthy, where you gotta test your depth. You know, I know that in Cowboys land and in North Texas, what they want is that Earl Thomas signs with the Cowboys. And because, you know, the Cowboys secondary is, you know, it's a little weak. It's the weak spot of the defense, I would say, on paper. I'm not sure what Earl Thomas would do differently because, quite frankly, there's so many guys on this Dallas Cowboys team in the front 7 that just aren't playing up to how they're supposed to. Aldon Smith was the one exception here. He looked great Sunday night. But other than that, you know, there's guys on this team that just aren't playing up to either their contract or how they're expected to. But I expect the Cowboys to bounce back because that stuff can't go on for much longer. Okay, the Jason Garrett days are done. That is all for me on Timeout today. A huge thank you to Chris Faria for joining me on the program. Some good hockey talk. Chris is always fantastic. Hope that he joins me again very soon. Please remember that this show can also be heard on the BarnBurner Radio Network, and it's 122 platforms. Please check us out at barnburner.ca for all the news. BarnBurner, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. I will see you in just a couple hours, 6:30 in this chair for the sports wrap. Until then, this is Logan Lockhart signing